All right, hello, welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. I'm going to bring back an old favorite, High Tempo, today. But before we get into that, Matt, I want to check in with Claysburg. I know you guys had another rough week, right?
Yeah, just can't get on the right side of it. It's frustrating. Had a close matchup. We threw some unconventional things at them. Some of the old Tiger Ellison lonesome polecat, and were able to manufacture some scores, but just ran out of gas in the second half. They had a really good running back and just ran it down the throat. So we got one game left, and the season will be done at that point. Well,
good luck. I'm guessing playoffs are out of the picture, or do you still have a chance?
Yeah, no. That was 2 weeks ago. We were eliminated.
Oh, well, sorry to hear that. Hopefully you guys can work on getting those, the bowl practices in to get ready for next year. Sorry, because you guys have the extra game. Do you know who you're playing?
We're playing Marion Center this week.
So it's not a repeat? Because I knew there was a possibility of a repeat that one.
No, there's no repeat. We're actually on a short week. We're playing on Thursday. Got a little bit of action going.
So your last game of the year is on a Thursday?
Yes.
Just pretend it's like the Thanksgiving game, Matt. Because, what was it? The Egg Bowl?
Play.
The Egg Bowl's on Thursday, right? Isn't that every Thanksgiving? So just pretend you're Mike Leach and you're just going out on a Thursday.
Well, it has been a good week of practice so far, and being able to, because Marion Center is another wing T school as well. So, all of the film that we've had pretty much has been from other schools that run the wing T. So it's been kind of nice to just go, and we're going to practice against ourselves. So we can kind of work on polishing some things. The kids have been really responsive to it, so that's a good thing.
All right, cool. Yeah, we'll be checking back in next week as we get ready for the offseason, and then we'll be bringing in some other offseason topics like we normally do. But we also have football still going strong, and, I mean, we're closing in on the end of college football. A lot of our pro teams aren't doing too well, but maybe they can get things turned around. Right now, though, we're going to bring back High Tempo. For those of you watching the video, this is our first go, so hopefully it doesn't go rough. You can see the full video and the live stream at southboundsports.com. You can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/southboundsports to get that link. But we're also going to cut some of these out to put them on YouTube to help share on social media and stuff too. So if you find a clip that you like, you'll be able to go ahead and share that. So we're going to give it a run, see how it goes, and hopefully if we can keep building on this in the coming weeks. All right, I got a good one for you, Matt. Texas versus the Big 12.
Ooh.
I know you're not going to agree with me on this, but I think the fix is in. I put together a handy little chart here that shows you Texas penalties per game, 6.375, right? Penalty yards per game, 51. Pretty average. They're actually in the middle of the pack on the NCAA ranking. I think they're 47th overall. They go and play Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is going to be the premier team in the Big 12 when Texas leaves for the SEC. I don't think the Big 12 wants Texas or Oklahoma anywhere near the playoffs. So to do that, they go ahead and maybe call penalties a little bit in favor of Oklahoma State, right? So during the Oklahoma State game, Texas gets called for 14 penalties per game, or 14 penalties, and they're penalized for 119 yards. Over double what their average is, right? Guess how many penalties Oklahoma State had?
Probably a similar amount.
0. They didn't get penalized at all.
But the Mullet's very disciplined, so that makes sense.
Well, I knew you were going to say that, and that's why I brought in the average this time. I wanted to counteract your thing there. I did look up Oklahoma State. I don't remember what their number was exactly. But my point is the Big 12, they know that if Texas makes the playoffs, everyone already thinks that it's an Oklahoma league in the Big 12. I believe they're the only Big 12 team to have made the playoff. There was a year with Baylor and TCU, and then they fought about who was the real champion after they ran all those championship ads, and they didn't pick one, and the playoff didn't pick them. Now, they're only going to have one team, I believe, coming into the new Big 12 that has made the playoffs. Do you know what team that is, Matt?
Who's that?
Cincinnati last year. They're going to be a new Big 12 member. They're coming in. I think the Big 12 is going to do everything in their power to keep Oklahoma State close and TCU. They do not want Texas in the Big 12 championship game. So now Texas is 3-2. TCU and Oklahoma State and Kansas State. So Kansas State and Oklahoma State both have one loss. TCU right now is undefeated in conference. They take the two highest teams in the conference, and I think they have like their game tiebreaker. So right now, Oklahoma State would own that tiebreaker over Texas if they both finish with a similar record. But I've never seen anything like that. Have you? That's the most lopsided penalty I've ever seen. Yes. Where have you seen it? Did you look it up?
No, I haven't looked it up, but I've experienced it because that's the way all of my games go. I never get the benefit of the favorable calls, and I think that like when you look at how some of these games are played, like and using this particular game as an example, officials aren't going to give the benefit of the doubt on certain calls to the underdog. And Oklahoma State had the higher ranking. They're not going to call the game in Texas's favor to give them those points. Like when you look at a lot of these matchups, like even go down through the list of your top 25 games, the majority of the calls go to the team that has the higher ranking. I mean, I'm sure there's some outlier games in the middle, but for the most part, like they're gonna give the calls to the favorable team.
Now that's a deeper conspiracy than I had planned to talk about. This is it.
Well, tell me how I would be wrong though, because when you look at the teams that quote get all the calls, isn't it ironic that they're also teams that are like playing really well too? Like sometimes that luck is in your favor, but also I think sometimes the officials aren't going to they're not going to make a questionable call and be like, you're the officials that cost so and so the game.
That's very true, but I'm going to stick to my guns here. I think the Big 12 is out to get Texas. They want to have the door hit them on the way out, kick them down because they don't want to have any momentum because Texas A&M is down. They don't want Texas to go into the SEC, get the recruiting bump, get the playoff bump, and then kind of eat away at their recruiting ground. Because the Big 12 needs that recruiting ground to survive.
That's almost a cut your nose off to spite your face type deal, though, because it's their last year that if they do have a competitive team, doesn't that generate more revenue through their vaunted Longhorn network?
Do they still have that? I don't think they care about that. I think that they want to put one of their teams in the playoff so that next year they can market that or whenever. Are they moving next year or is it the year after that? I can't remember. I get confused with the UCLA move and USC. But I think that they really want to promote, hey, we have playoff contender Oklahoma State, or hell, if TCU or Oklahoma State won a national championship, I think that would kind of flip it to where now they can market themselves as a premier league, just like Clemson does with the ACC. And Clemson's been getting the benefit of the doubt. To your point, they had similar calls on Saturday. But all right, let's get into. We'll cut to our next one. This is another good one for you. Penn State whiteouts, Matt. They had one. They just beat down Minnesota. Put it on here, a 45-17 victory. And so I was crunching the numbers and I wondered, is the whiteout effective? Because it gets a lot of hype. You're bringing all of the students in. I see a lot of fudging with the numbers, right? Because Penn State, they said that the first couple years, 2004 to 2006 and 7, I'm not sure which year it flipped, but they turned to do an all-stadium whiteout, where the first couple games, it might be the first 3 where they were 1 and 2, they only did the student section. And then the rest of the stadium embraced it. And up until the last 2 years, so going to COVID, they were tied. It was 8-8 overall record. They did win the last 2 years. And I'm going to say, I think going forward, the whiteout's going to be a lot more effective. Because the Big Ten noon game kind of kills the Penn State whiteout. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you look through this list, at least for like the last decade or so, the whiteout was basically the Ohio State or Michigan game. They got lucky with the schedule where they played one every other year at home. So from 2012 to like 2019, they just kept flipping it back and forth. Oh, 1 year we got Ohio State, 1 year we got Michigan, and that was the whiteout game. They weren't really mixing it up. Now with Fox having the noon game as their first pick, like this week when Ohio State plays Penn State, it's at noon. They're not going to do a whiteout game at noon because, number one, it's not the same atmosphere. So I think you're going to get it mixed in where you're going to either have a non-conference game. I would love to see Pitt in a whiteout game. They're not on this list right now. But what do you think going forward? I think the record speaks for itself. You're playing a lot of tough teams. I did look at the spread on these, and they did beat the spread, I think, like the last 5 out of 6 years or so. Going back, the numbers were kind of iffy past that. But when you're always playing top teams, trying to get the upset with the whiteout, using that home field advantage, I think the record isn't going to be as good as what people expect. What do you think?
I think it's how you build it, and I think they've marketed it really well, that they use that as a big recruiting weekend, and I think that can be something that helps them out. That if you're able, if you can get a team like Pitt, that regardless of what your calendar comes out as, you do have rivals, you idiots, and I do think that Pitt's one of them, and I almost look at it in a way that like Michigan and Michigan State play each other, and like Michigan usually just gives Michigan State a beatdown, kept with a few exceptions. The same thing, like Penn State could use that as a big recruiting weekend, curb stomp Pitt, and then still maintain a high level of recruiting in the state.
I think it would be a big game recruiting wise, and even if they just expand it out a little bit, I would hate to see the Big Ten television contract kind of kill it. Does it have to be Ohio State or Michigan every year? I don't think so. To me, I think that would get stale, which as a fan, not a fan of Penn State, I mean, watching it, yeah. Did it get stale a little bit, the Ohio State games, whenever you're losing a good bit of them? Maybe. You did get the one upset in 2016. I was at the one in 2014 when it went to double overtime. Penn State should have won. There was like an interception, like right in front of me. I was in the end zone that I can't remember. They either overturned it or not. But I thought Penn State should have won that one. If they had better results, yeah, keep going on. But I would like to see them mix it up and play other opponents. I just don't want to see it being pushed back to like, oh, this year's Minnesota, next year it's Maryland. Happy whiteout, and then that kills some of the momentum for me. They can't really do Michigan State because I think that's their Thanksgiving game. So you're not going to have a whiteout on Thanksgiving weekend, I don't think. You want the students there. You want the atmosphere to be pumping. I think taking how they did Auburn in 2021, where it's an early out-of-conference type game, if you can get a big opponent in. They also did it with Alabama in 2011. That's what I would like to see if you're not able to mix in Michigan and Ohio State. Hell, you're also going to have a chance to get UCLA and USC, and maybe then you'll be able to mix in, say, a Nebraska if they ever come back. They might not. Maybe you'll get Notre Dame back on the schedule. That would be another big one that they had before. So I think it works. I think the stats are a little bit misleading. And as a fan of the sport, I love seeing the whiteout. All right, so we got one more high tempo, and then we'll kick into some NFL talk. This one's a little bit crazy. It's out there, but I'm going to throw it up See how it goes. All right, there's a scenario right there. It's far-fetched, so I'm going to actually probably put this one out first, where Northwestern can win the Big Ten West as part of a 7-way tie. They'll finish with a Big Ten West record of 4-2. Their overall record in the Big Ten would be 4-5, just like every other Western team. And with that, I think they would end up being 4-8 or whatever. I think that would be their 12 games. So they would have a losing record. With this scenario, they would make the Big Ten championship game. If they were to win the Big Ten championship game, I know it's far-fetched. They'd probably play Ohio State. They did play Penn State close, though. So you never know. What if there's a 3-way tie and Penn State gets the nod? Wouldn't that be funny if they played them again and beat them in the rematch? Then you have 5-8 Northwestern ineligible for the Rose Bowl. What do you think, Matt?
I think it's funny to think about.
Do you think they'd get the waiver? That's what I want to know. Would the Big Ten write the letter and say, we know they don't have 6 wins, but they're our champ. We think they should play Oregon or whomever in the Rose Bowl, which would just be a beatdown, I would think.
Oh, I think they would definitely sign off on. Why would you not?
They would get viewers for the first 15 minutes because they're like, here's this loser team in the Rose Bowl. And there's nothing against Northwestern right now. I would love to see this because Illinois, they would almost have to lose the rest of their games. I do think it's kind of plausible. The Ohio State and Michigan that are on this graph looks like every team would lose to them, which would make sense. I think that's going to happen. It's just what happens with Penn State and Ohio State this weekend. Is it going to be a 3-way tie in the East? Could it give Northwestern a little bit more favorable matchup than playing Ohio State? I don't know. But I would love to see this, especially with teams like Nebraska and Wisconsin just firing their coach. Why not give it to Pat Fitzgerald? Get him back in that game. He was just in it 2 years ago. I think they lost to Ohio State. Get it done. I know we always laugh about, what was it, the Coastal, where they had all their ties, and then they had 7 different champs in 7 different years.
Yeah.
That's what the Big Ten West is becoming. They need the saviors from the West Coast. They need USC and UCLA to come in, Matt, and bring Snoop Dogg and a bunch of other celebrities out there in the Rose Bowl for a powerful matchup with 4-8 Northwestern. That's what the Big Ten needs. They need Northwestern to be Big Ten champ. Would you watch the game? That's my last question.
Yeah, as long as I don't have some other family stuff going on.
It could be a family event, Matt. You're witnessing history. Northwestern playing in the Big Ten championship game. They win. You can tell your kids and your grandkids for generations, I was there when Northwestern won the Big Ten with a losing record. They always complain about it happening in the NFL. It can very likely happen in college football. And not only that, this could have major implications going forward for the playoffs. In that scenario, Northwestern would be in a 12-team playoff because 8. Maybe they wouldn't. Don't they have the highest bid? The 6 highest rated conferences? So could you imagine a Big Ten champ missing the playoffs, Matt? Because they're 5 and whatever. 5-8. Insane. Insanity. That might leave a team like the Sun Belt, Matt, to sneak in. You never know. That's what I want to see in the playoffs. I would assume that it would have been like the Pac-12 or someone having a weaker team, but maybe it will be Northwestern that gets it done. They are supposed to be one of the smartest schools in the Big Ten. So.
There you go.
All right, let's get back to our show now. High tempo. Hope you liked it. Trying to keep some topics up. Go through them pretty fast, just like we used to do back in the day, and help promote the show. So if you have any ideas for us, let us know. Some of them, they'll be kind of relevant, like Penn State was just in the whiteout last week. But some of them might be a little bit more evergreen. We'll see how it goes. My big topic for the NFL this week, the 49ers get desperate, Matt. it sounds like an Always Sunny episode where they're like, hey, we have Deebo Samuel. You know what we need? We need another pass-catching running back just like him. Because why not? Let's trade a ton of picks for Christian McCaffrey. How's it going to help our offense? Well, we don't know. Are you going to be able to use both of them? Well, we don't know. But McCaffrey's always hurt, so it could work out for us. Because if he does get hurt, we have Deebo Samuel as a backup, right?
And miraculously, he healed.
Yeah, every time there was one scrum where he got up and pushed the guy, and I thought, did he push him because that guy rolled his ankle? Because it kind of looked like he limped. But then he was like, fine. I was like, oh my gosh, in Carolina, that would have been it for the game. He would have went over to the sideline in the tunnel. They wouldn't have known where he went. Unlike Robbie Anderson, coaches can always find him. Which, can you believe that? I don't even know if they traded him before the end of our show last week. We talked about Robbie Anderson. He gets traded to the Cardinals. And I felt so bad for the poor sap I played in fantasy because you could tell that they needed a flex to pick up. They had Robbie Anderson. They're like, we'll play him. ESPN projected him to have a handful of points, 0 points. He barely played for the Cardinals. They ran one fade route to him, or one go route, and it was overthrown. He complained about being held, and that's pretty much the Robbie Anderson experience. So, Cardinals fans, if you haven't watched him play with the Panthers, or hell, even before, I think he was with the Jets, that's what you're in for. A deep shot or two, and some complaining. That's the experience you just got. I don't know which. Obviously, the Robbie Anderson deal, I think, was the worst deal, besides McCaffrey. McCaffrey has a lot more upside, but I just don't get it. 49ers, hey, you guys have been playing pretty inconsistent. What do you need? Another pass-catching running back, that's for sure. How many picks are you going to give up to get him? A 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5, I think, at least, maybe more. The 5 was the year after. So, like, next year, they're going to have, unless they have a bunch of draft picks already, but you're missing the entire middle of the draft. So hopefully the draft's not in San Francisco next year. I don't think their fans would show up. Wouldn't it be funny if they drafted a running back?
It might.
They could draft Blake Corum from Michigan. Then it'd fit the mold. Shifty running backs like McCaffrey. And then they're just like, oh, another one? Perfect. Shit, I finally got the pieces I need.
Like Bill Belichick with slot receivers. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I'll take him, too.
I just don't get it. Like, the Panthers down here, and then they almost had a chance to trade another one of the young players away. I can't remember which one it was, but they vetoed it, and I'm like, just go all in. Get the draft picks now. Like, why are you trying to keep anybody? Just let it go. See what you can get, and then start the entire rebuild. You don't know who your coach is going to be. It could be Urban Meyer. He's available. He's wearing the sunglasses on set, Matt, so they can't see him looking at co-eds. I don't know what's going on with him on the Fox show. But they could also get Tomlin. I think the Steelers should cut ties with him. That's just me.
Wow.
I think that the team is lost. I don't know why they're playing Pickett, but we'll get into that in a second. What do you think of the McCaffrey trade? Do you like it?
I think it's good for San Francisco, but I also think they're leveraging a whole lot for an inconsistent player. I think they're in a mindset of they want to try to win right now. Maybe they're just betting on themselves of thinking, we're just going to give up the farm right now. Hope that he stays healthy because we're not going to use him the same way that Carolina used him, and roll the dice that he stays healthy.
I think that's what they're definitely trying to do, is hope that he's healthy, gives him another option. I don't think they're really ready for the playoffs, at least to me. Like, when I look at the NFL, I mean, the standings, they're kind of shaky this year anyway, overall. But, like, inside of just that division, they're behind the Seahawks, but they're still battling the Rams and the Cardinals. And you're looking at, like, what really sets them apart. I don't think really anything. The Garoppolo move was the right move. I know it was based on an injury. That should never have happened anyway. They could have traded Lance without ever playing him and got pieces earlier. Now you're stuck with two quarterbacks, one you don't really want. You didn't want Garoppolo.
Are you talking about the Steelers right now?
No.
You drafted Pickett. You already had a quarterback. You wasted it on not securing the line, and now you're putting everything on your running back. Like it's almost comparable to what's going on in Pittsburgh right now.
But the 49ers have had, 2 or 3 years to fix the situation with Lance? When did they draft him? He's learned enough. Like, you know what you got. The fact that they were like, we're going to play him, and then he looked bad, and they were like surprised. It's like, you knew what you had. Trade him. The Eagles knew that Wentz wasn't good. They kept hyping him up. He didn't win the Super Bowl. They pretended he did. Trade him right after that. Some poor sap team would likely trade for him. What are you doing? This is the 49ers. Now they're stuck. People know that Lance isn't good. They're not going to trade for him. Are you going to trade Jimmy G? You've already turned down how many trades for him?
Well, look at what we talked about on here. Why do you think I told you? You don't trade quarterbacks away unless you absolutely have to. You need to have two quarterbacks because exactly what happened. One goes down, the other goes in. Look at Pittsburgh. Trubisky goes down, Pickett goes in. Pickett starts screwing up, put Trubisky back in. Like you can play dancing quarterbacks until you find the one that works.
What about the Seahawks? Didn't they trade Russell, or did he get signed in free agency? I can't remember now.
They had Geno Smith.
They made out with that deal.
And they traded because Drew Lock's there too.
Drew Lock. Didn't he already wash out of the Broncos anyway?
But he still fits in that backup role.
The Broncos are so bad that watching the game 2 weeks ago when I just needed Russell Wilson to complete one pass in overtime and he couldn't do it. Now it's like, are they even trying?
I joked about it, but maybe this is actually going to come true. The Russell Wilson's just like, I can't do this. Just walk away. Just take his fully guaranteed contract and just quit. Just be done.
What if they just stop playing him? Right?
They could do that.
And then
but I think it'd be funny if he's just like, I'm not gonna end my career like Tom Brady. Yeah, I'm just gonna quit.
The thing with Russell is they've already marketed him so much. Like they were doing all these social media campaigns. The Broncos were behind all that.
Well, and the nut kicker in all of it is that they have him playing every single primetime game, and they're playing in these snooze fest games. And then you have teams like Buffalo, like Kansas City that you don't play during those games.
Well, how about my prediction on Pickett? We could switch a little bit of quarterback talk here. What did I say about playing him in that Bills game? Well, that's a lamb to the slaughter, right? Then he plays against the Bucs. He gets a concussion. Then Trubisky comes in, saves the day, gets the win, right? And then last night, Pickett's like, hey, I'm back. But I'm just throwing interceptions, baby. It doesn't even matter. I'm not up to game speed at all in the NFL, where I'm used to giving it up and thinking that my guy is the only one that can make a catch. Meanwhile, in the NFL, that's not the case. He should have just rested, not played. Now his confidence has to start getting shaken, I think. Because you're the young gun. You come in and you're like, I got the arm. I can make that throw. Wrong. Getting picked. And then you have a chance to win the game. I think they had a chance to win, or was it go to overtime? On that final drive, he still gets intercepted. It's what are you doing, buddy? Make the safe throw. You had time. It wasn't like it was the last play of the game. I don't get it. It's mind-boggling. Same with Mac Jones coming in. He was in the Pro Bowl last year. He comes in just throwing picks. People are like, why are they pulling him so early? He's a turnover machine. Bill Belichick doesn't want that. Bill Belichick would love to have Tom Brady back. Tom Brady's not really a turnover machine. Yeah, he's been missing a lot of throws, and he's definitely starting to show his age. He's missing throws like Peyton Manning did, although he can still.
No, but also on the flip side of that, you can't be throwing to Mike Evans, who drops every third.
Well, I was going to say that's the only difference is Tom Brady can still throw deep for whatever reason. Peyton Manning couldn't throw deep. Like his balls deep would just be like, just fluttering, and then it would just like get intercepted. Tom Brady puts it right in Mike Evans' hands. He drops it, and then he's like fumbling around. I'm like, just throw to Godwin, man. That's my fantasy guy. I don't have Evans this year. What are you doing, Tom? I should text him. Tell him last year it was cool to throw to him because he was on my team. I needed the points from him, but I don't have Evans this year, buddy. Maybe I should text him. He doesn't realize. He'll start throwing to Godwin. He doesn't really drop him. But you have Godwin blocking a lot, I've noticed. So you can throw to like some unknown receivers on like screen passes. Maybe it's to protect them. Because like I'm sure like on screen passes you're just taking a beating. So maybe they're like, well, we won't let Godwin get hit there anymore because he's always injured anyway. But I don't know. Then I look at like Trevor Lawrence. It seems like he only runs for touchdowns. Like he can't throw the ball for a touchdown. Did you see the end of that game? They like ran a post, but Kirk caught it on like the 2-yard line and was fighting for the end zone and couldn't get in. I thought they had, I don't know if they had a timeout, but they definitely had a second or two on the clock. If you had the timeout, just go down. Why are you fighting for the extra yard when you know you're not going to get it? There's 3 dudes holding on to you. Right? Or lateral it. There's like 2 other guys right there. If you know it's the last play of the game, what are you doing? Trevor Lawrence looked like he was going to cry. I don't think he's used to all this losing. They blamed it on Urban Meyer last year. Maybe it's not him. I think they traded James Robinson to the Jets, didn't they?
Yes.
Because Breece Hall got hurt. Write that down. If Robinson, he's probably picked up in your league, though. But now's your chance. If you locked out and you had him sitting down, the Jets have really been using that running back. Breece Hall's been rocking up a ton of fantasy points as a rookie. So if James Robinson comes in, can run behind that line, that's going to be a game changer in a lot of leagues. One of the guys I think I'm tied with, I'm in second right now. One of the guys I'm tied with had Breece Hall, and I hate to see any player injured, but couldn't happen to a better fantasy team that I'm playing against. I wanted Breece. I couldn't, people bid him up, and I was thinking, like, why are you bidding him up so high? He's a rookie. We don't even know how good he is.
And he's a rookie for the Jets yet to boot.
Yeah, and I always say don't take any Jets. You never know what's going to happen. Since I brought up fantasy, what am I, a half game behind? Or no? We have, stupid tie because Russell Wilson really jacked me up there. But you talked about last week how you had all these people scoring on you. Up until this past week when my opponent didn't show up at all, I had the most points scored on me by opposing teams. I think that's why I have 2 losses, because I have the most points scored in our league per week, but then I also had the most against me. And then this past week, my team started slow, and I thought, oh man, this is a bad week. I don't know, like I'm watching my guys, I'm seeing they don't have any stats, so I load up my matchup. My opponent has 32 points. I'm like, his guy's like not even getting any points. I felt so bad. I was like, do you want me to count Kirk for you? Because he's on my bench. He had 16. Help you out. I think he ended with 45, which I don't even know if that's an all-time low. But like, that's what you get for having 3 Cowboys on your team. Dak and all of them. What do you have? CD that only had 11. Like, you have all these guys. You have a Broncos running back. That's a bad move. And then you pick up Robbie Anderson as your flex because Thielen's out. Just awful week. I felt bad. My bench had half the points that his team had. My only last thing I had for fantasy, randomly, because of course the tight end battle I've been fighting, I can't get a tight end to score any points. I pick up Bellinger from the Giants. He's had 2 double-digit points or weeks in a row. You know, he's not projected to score much. I just need like 5 or 6 points. I already said I'm the highest scoring team. I just need a guy that can get me in case one of my running backs don't score. Because like Henry and Eckler went off. He had a couple touchdowns, so I would have been fine either way. Bellinger makes one catch, gets his eye poked out. And I get an alert on my phone. It's like Bellinger leaves game after getting his eye poked out with blood on his jersey. They like put it in there in the sentence. So I'm like, oh, that's bad news. Is he like out for the year now? Because like you don't get poked in the eye and
Just
then
give
have
him an eye patch and send him back out.
and then you have blood on your jersey. Like how bad was the eye? Like I didn't click on the video because I didn't want to throw up. I thought that has to be bad, right? So I hope he's back. I hope he's okay. I don't know if I'll keep him or play him because do you come back from an eye gouging? I don't know.
The Ultimate Warrior would.
He was only good because he was like they were using him in goal line situations, and he was also like the fullback. I think he also had a running touchdown. So I'm like, this is good. I just need one guy to give me a touchdown. I had Tyler Conklin. He was on the bench. He scored 6 points. That's my only Jets guy on my team. I'm ready to cut him though.
Well, it was funny because the same week that you picked him up, I picked up Njoku from Cleveland. And you were saying, well, let's see which one is going to end up better. And they both bust because Njoku's injured too now.
I know. I was going to say, we both lost. We can't win. Every year I see Kelsey going up and I think, why are people paying that much for him? He's the only one that scores points. Guys, that's my tip. If you have a pick a tight end early. You can pick up these other jabronis. I picked up Stevenson, the running back for New England. I picked him up, almost last in the league. Like, he was one of the dollar ones. I don't even know what I ended up buying for him. I bid him up because I thought, well, I need another running back. What can it hurt? Let's see what I bid. I've drafted him for $11. He's like the 8th or 9th highest scoring running back in the league. Got me 22 last week. I'm actually playing 3 running backs, which is unheard of in our PPR league. But I'm like, I can't take him out because he's scoring touchdowns every week. Their team sucks. The New England. They can't pass it because they'll just throw an interception. So he's 9. I have, in terms of running backs, I have number 1, number 8, and number 9. 3 top 10 running backs on my team. Pretty sweet.
But with response to the negativity of players, I understand why everyone hates Kyler Murray. Because every week it's like the same story where I watch the game starts and it's like, why did I start him? Why don't I find somebody else? And then they get down, and then it's like I have to wait till the fourth quarter. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to just throw all these short, quick passes to my receivers and be good. It's like, and he goes right down the field then and scores like 1 or 2 touchdowns. So like you get a decent average of points, but it's like in the most infuriating manner possible because the whole time you're just like it would be the worst if you were like a cardiac patient trying to watch these games. They're just having like heart attacks and minor issues with your heart because you're just like, he's not getting me any points. He's not doing anything. He's not doing anything. Not doing anything. Oh, okay. Here we go. Two touchdown passes.
That's how my life is with Amari Cooper. The Browns usually suck so bad at the beginning of the game. They get down big, and he's like at 2 points. I'm like, oh, God, here we go. And then at the end of the game, it was like 3 quick passes to him, and he's up to 10, 13 points last week. What did he get, like 10 or something? And then he usually
he
gets
runs it down to the 2, and then they let Chubb run it in. It's like the perfect storm.
Well, no, there were 4 weeks. The Jets, the Steelers, the Chargers, in New England, where he scored like in the last couple minutes. He went 25, 23, 20, and then 14 points. Last week, he did score, but they said he got pushed off for offensive pass interference. So then they took him out and they didn't put him back in. And they lost. So that's what they get for taking my man out. Just let him rest all game and then just put him in at the end. that's all I need. Because like I don't even know what else to do. Like I had Olave in from the Saints, but like their quarterback situation's a mess. And I hate talking fantasy the whole time, but that's kind of like how I watch my games now. It's really shaped it because I'm like, why do I care about the Saints game? Like, why am I watching it? It's brutal. Why is Olave dropping that wide open pass? Like, what's he doing? Quit dropping.
It's going to get better. Jameis is coming back.
I hope so. Although I hope he has some chemistry because, like I said, Tyler Conklin, I picked him up with the Jets because he was playing good with Flacco. Zach Wilson comes in. He's like, "You're not old enough for me, buddy. I like him old. I'm coming in, and I'm not even looking your way." And then ESPN like always tries to tell me like, "Hey, we have him down for 7 points this week." I'm like, "In what world is he getting 7 points with Zach Wilson? Are you kidding me?" Because they keep averaging in. So with Flacco, I kid you not, 11, 10, 16. I pick him up 8. Okay, and I think I picked him up around there 8, then 0, and I'm like, what did I do? 2. And then last week was 6. I had already benched him after the 0 and the 2 game. So I got like a 1-game run out of him. And it's like, all right, what am I doing? I paid $6 for him? What a waste of money. I don't even need a free agent. Although my kicker's like, I don't even need a kicker. Tyler Bass, like whatever. You're not even scoring that much. I'm going to look and just randomly pick up a new kicker every week, I think. That's going to be my move. Whoever they project to score the highest is going to be my kicker. Because I feel like, and this is a tip for all fantasy people out there, like same with defense. People are like, "Oh, well, I got my defense. I got like the 5th best defense." And then they'll hold on to him and hold on to him. And then injuries and stuff happens and they never make a move. And then you look at like, hey, the Jets guy, he's kicking better than both of my kickers. Maybe I'll just pick him up this week. He had 12 points last week. Or Chicago, are they going to go on a run? 18 points last week if you had their kicker that's also available in our league. And then same with the defense, man. The Cardinals, I wouldn't have expected them to score 12 points. But the Titans had 20 last week. Unheard of. I should just start picking up teams that I think are going to do good. Although then that might be my demise. So maybe I should just stick with the average. I've been doing pretty well with it. I don't know. What do you think?
I would just keep your team intact.
I need to be the top gun, Matt. I need to bring it back. I'll go to the playoffs and I'll score 66 points one week. I'll just be weeping on the show.
You'll get like 10 points.
James will come back. He'll forget to put his
contacts in. It will be never be touched again.
Because like this week, what? Eckler's on a bye. That's okay. I can put Stevenson in for him. And then put Christian Kirk back in my lineup. And then my predicted points go up, up, up. That's all I need. So if you need tips for guys to pick up, let me know. I need a quarterback. I still have Deshaun Watson when he comes back. That's what's going to be my hell. That's going to be my hell. Because Trevor Lawrence has been getting a little bit better each week for me. That's why I brought him up earlier. But my only thing is like, he gets down to the end zone. He never throws. He's always running in, which counts good for me. Like, awesome. But, like, buddy, you can get hurt. And Deshaun Watson's suspension is not over yet. And I already dropped. Who was that other quarterback I picked up? Mariota?
Marcus Mariota.
I couldn't take him. He was, like, throwing it 15 interceptions in the first half. And then he's like, you know what? I guess I need to stop doing that. In the second half, then his points would come back up and it'd be his average. I'm like, buddy, just quit throwing the interceptions in the first half. And then you'd get me 20 points a game. And he just couldn't do it, so I couldn't take it. I would watch him because it'd be on down here in the South. Because they were like, hey, watch this Falcons game. You know you want to. And then I'm just sitting there in pain. So I said, give me Lawrence. His games are never on TV. That's what I need. Mariota's 12. So Trevor Lawrence is slightly above him, but I'm telling you, just because of the running. So, we'll see. Crazy Andy Dalton right there. He scored 26 last week, Matt, with that offense. Maybe Jameis doesn't matter when he comes back. Although that might have just been because they were playing Arizona, and Arizona just likes to play no defense, I guess.
They're playing a video game.
Last thing I had for the NFL, complaining about my Packers, Aaron Rodgers, man, he knows that he ruined the team by taking all the money and then not having money to sign anybody. And then he throws shade at the owners. Rude. He's like, oh, yeah, if they would have picked up a receiver earlier, or they waited too long to pick up some weapons for me. It's like, waited too long, buddy. You took all the money. You could have had Devontae Adams back. I don't understand how Devontae Adams was like such a big drop that they went from 3 losses last year to already having, 4 losses this year? They're already a worse team. I don't see them making the playoffs. And then that's going to be the end. It's going to say, which quarterback fell off? Maybe Lamar Jackson too, you never know. But it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. It'll just be like a commercial with State Farm where they're all in the nursing home. And they're like, we did play a game today? That's what it should do. I should call State Farm up and write them. I'll just hand them a script of a bunch of old quarterbacks not knowing what they're doing. Throwing picks. They'll try to throw garbage in the wastebasket, but it'll just completely go wrong. Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
I think we hit a lot of teams this week. Just because fantasy's been driving me nuts. And then people are like, hey, play Zappy. Which I don't even know how to say his name because I never listened to the audio, the people doing the broadcast. So you could fantasy it up. And if you would have had both Patriots quarterbacks, Matt, guess how many fantasy points you would have had last week?
All of them.
5 combined.
Ooh.
So that should be a thing. I wish ESPN would let someone play just like the old Tecmo Super Bowl, which just said Patriots quarterback, or whatever team that didn't have their guy licensed in. You could just play Patriots quarterbacks. And then, to me as a commissioner, I think that'd be fair.
QB Bills.
QB Panthers, too. Is it PJ Walker? Is it Baker Mayfield? Who knows? Who knows what you're going to get in there? All right, let's get to college football. I know we already hit on some in the high tempo. I'm going to try to mix up some NFL stuff in there too. But since it was the first week, those were the 3 that were on my mind. I didn't get to really watch a lot of NFL other than the Steelers, and I was too depressed after watching that game. But going back to our ref thing, Matt, did you see the Clemson game?
Yes.
If they don't call penalties that are judgment calls consistently, it really makes it seem like it's rigged to the people that don't watch every game. To me, Syracuse's offense, they're running the ball really well, and they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play right into Clemson's strength and let their pass rushers just take us for sack after sack. But honestly, DJ played so bad that Syracuse should have won the game. Dabo makes a switch, brings in the other quarterback. Syracuse has them stopped. And there is a ticky-tack late hit penalty, which I didn't think was really late hit. He did kind of put his shoulder into him, but if he would have extended his hand, I don't think they would have called it and pushed him, unless he flopped or something. But then the very next series, after Clemson scored there, I don't know if they got a field goal or if they got a touchdown, but they were still down multiple scores when that penalty happened. So Syracuse should have got the ball back. The next drive, the same exact thing, except Syracuse's guy is even further out of bounds, and he takes the pop. They don't throw the flag. And in that same situation, they're calling random holds on Syracuse, and they're calling false starts on Syracuse. And it goes back to my Texas thing. I forgot to bring this up. But I looked at the game thing. When Texas was going for their drive to tie the game, there was a holding penalty and a false start penalty. And the false start penalty, then it was 4th down. It went from 4-3 to 4-8. And then he threw a pick trying to force it in from the 4th and 8. I think if he went with the 4th and 3, Texas has a better chance of picking it up. They get the ball one last time, immediately a false start penalty called. And I know some of those, if it's a false start, it's a false start. Some of them you really can't fake, But there were a couple, in the Syracuse game, where it was very close to not being a false start. Because, you're playing on the road. It's kind of loud. But it's when it's pretty close to the snap, I don't know how you're calling it with confidence saying that was a false start, To me, when you're watching it and you're wondering, how can you call the late hit out of bounds for one team but not the other? Typically, I'm used to the Big Ten.
The haves and the have-nots.
I'm used to the Big Ten, though, where you make a horrific call against Michigan, and then the next drive, they just do a makeup call, Matt. And they're like, oh, yeah, what did we give that other team? 15 yards? Well, let's just throw a random 15-yard penalty, and then Michigan gets the yards back on the next drive. That didn't happen, though, for Syracuse. It was like, hey, instead, we're just going to keep giving Clemson penalties. You know? I looked it up. Well, let me see if I still have it up. Because I watched it, and I thought, someone after that game gave Clemson a first-place vote in the AP poll. Did they not watch the game? Clemson looked like shit. And there's no way that you could say, wow, that's the number one team. Like, even Georgia playing like some team's tough, I would never have looked at that and said, hey, they're better than Ohio State, you know? Ohio State hasn't played anyone with less than like two-score advantage, you know? They haven't played Penn State. They play them this week. If Penn State beats them, would I be surprised? No. I think it's at Ohio State, though. Or no, wait, it should be at Penn State, right? I don't even know. Let me bring up the top 25 here and let's double check. So it is at Penn State, but like I said, they didn't get the whiteout this year because it got picked for the Big Ten noon game. So Michigan's doing their maize out against Michigan State at night. That usually never works out. So we'll see if Michigan can break that curse against Michigan State. But Penn State, if Ohio State comes in and Penn State beats them, I would not be surprised. Penn State looked like a totally different team last week. They got killed by Michigan, couldn't do anything. And then against Minnesota, it was like they actually had a game plan. So I was shocked because I'm used to James Franklin not putting anything together. It's almost like, and then did you see the comments from Harbaugh and him?
No.
They were still trading jabs. Michigan had a bye week last week, but Franklin still came out this week and said that Michigan needs to have an extra time for their halftime. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but they need to have a buffer because it's not safe having two teams in the tunnel at a time. And then, of course, they asked Harbaugh about it, and Harbaugh said, they've been doing this forever. Penn State stopped, and he said, and didn't go into the locker room like they were supposed to. And then he said that it looked like Franklin was the ringleader behind it. But he doesn't have time to deal with Franklin's opinions. He has a bigger fish to fry or something like that, he said. But it's so weird. Like, hey, buddy, you're getting ready for Ohio State. What are you going to talk about this week? I'm going to complain about Michigan. You know? Not going to focus on, normally, isn't his stick like the team, but instead it's like Ohio State. That's all we're focused on. Akron. Doesn't he do that? This week he's like, no, we got to talk about Michigan's tunnel. That still rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I'm like, Franklin, calm down. I know you lost to Brady Hoke there. You haven't had a good record there, buddy. I think does he only have one win on the road at Michigan? 2? How many years has he been at Penn State? I don't even know. It's closing on a while, and they still haven't won like a 10-year deal. That's going to be one of my high tempos, Matt. Worst investment, James Franklin or we'll see how Michigan plays this weekend, but it might be Mel Tucker or Jimbo, right? Did Jimbo check out?
Yeah, I don't.
That's your guy. Like, what is he doing? He just doesn't care anymore.
I have no idea.
I actually would love to see him go to West Virginia.
No.
Why not?
No.
Why not, Matt? He's from West Virginia. He already said it a couple weeks ago. We talked about it on the show where he's coming in and he's saying like, hey, this is what it is, blah, 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 blah. I would never say no to West Virginia. That's where I'm from. But if A&M buys him out, there's actually not even a clause in his contract, from what I've heard, where it gets downgraded. Right? So what that means is typically if you get a buyout, if they're supposed to pay me $10 million a year to make things simple. But I get hired for another job where they're paying me $8 million a year. A&M then is off the hook for that $8 million. They only have to pay him $2 million, right? They have to pay the difference in salary since they fired him. They were saying last week, a couple of the big sports writers were saying that if he gets hired by West Virginia, A&M's still paying him $10 million. So he's going to make whatever West Virginia pays him on top of that.
Yep.
So if you're West Virginia right now, coaching is an issue for you, right? I think you bring in Jimbo and you say, look, your job is just recruiting. You're going to hire some young guys.
But there's no way he's going to accept that.
Why? You think he wants to go out a loser? It's like the ultimate Urban Meyer. Like, do you think he wants to be known for wearing shades on the Fox Countdown show after getting kicked out of Jacksonville, Matt? And even people are posting, like, I thought that was just me making fun of him for that after I sent you that. And then I looked on Twitter, I'm going to send you a picture of the shades. And all it was were people like, why is he wearing those shades? That looks really creepy. Like, does he not realize he's on TV and like all this stuff? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare for him, right? This is an absolute nightmare. So I just don't get it. I don't get why Jimbo would want to end his career as a loser. He won a national championship. Go to a smaller school like West Virginia. The Big 12, the big boys are leaving. You could be the most talented team in the Big 12. West Virginia has history. Sure, it might take a few years to get that built up, but I'm sure that like with NILs and stuff, and Jimbo's getting that money from A&M still, he's still getting paid. West Virginia can just pay for some better assistants, and he can build up and become a legend, right? Why not go to a smaller school and become a legend like Bill Snyder at Kansas State and just ride it out? Where, yeah, you might not be winning big every year, but you're consistently winning like 8 or more games, right? Be a Kirk Ferentz for West Virginia. That's not a bad job. Plus, A&M's paying you is like, isn't that the highest coaching salary of all time? Right?
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. So that's what I want. Not just because I want West Virginia to be back up there, but like they're the one team from the area growing up. Like Penn State, yeah, they expected to be good. They always had Joe Pa, so there was always like an air of arrogance about them. Pitt kind of had it with like they talked about their history. West Virginia didn't really have it. They were just like the kid that no one respected. Like that's what I wanted them to be good. When they had Rich Rod, even though they choked it away against Pitt, like that would have been the year where any team could have won college football if West Virginia wins it. Because they're a school that like, they're so small that if they win a national championship, then it kind of brings in other fans, I think. That's what college football is missing right now. They need a TCU to make the playoffs and win a random national championship. College basketball has it, where it's like, hey, how did Villanova win? They're not that big. And they won so much that people were like considering them a blue blood, and their coach just like quits, right? Gonzaga is going on runs. They put Cincinnati in, but now Cincinnati's joined the Big 12. They're not going to be a big underdog anymore. People expect in the expanded playoff for the Big 12 to make it. They're like, oh yeah, that's where Texas and Oklahoma play, right? Not anymore. West Virginia, baby, they could be on top. Then you could have classic matchups like Penn State and West Virginia in the playoffs. That's what I want. Although, Pitt could make a playoff or two.
They could.
Pitt's on the Kirk Ferentz plan, aren't they? They have one good year every 4 years.
Just win just enough to not get fired.
It's like, hey, we won the ACC. We can take a few years off, guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Narduzzi went in and told his staffers, like, hey, we won big last year, so this year we're taking it easy. I feel like Kirk Ferentz says the same thing. Like, come on, Brian. We were just in the Big Ten championship game last year. We don't need to win this year. Let Northwestern have this one in a 7-way tie. And then we'll be back next year. Because, like, Brian Ferentz, he's done, right? No team will hire him. That offense is awful.
As an analyst at Alabama.
Could you imagine? Bill O'Brien goes somewhere. Bill O'Brien will go to A&M. Jimbo will go to West Virginia. And then Jimbo will make the playoffs before A&M does. How's that for prediction?
That's bold.
Wasn't he in Houston anyway? So he should know the Texas area. He was at Penn State though. Or does Penn State get him back? A lot of their fans are kind of against Franklin. Although if he beats Ohio State, all sins are forgiven, right?
Makes sense.
If Penn State wins this week and Michigan loses to Michigan State, Penn State's in the driver's seat. Because Ohio State would be, at best, it would be, a 3-way tie? Or you could also get a 3-way tie if Penn State beats Ohio State. Or no, it would be a 2-way tie. No, damn, that wouldn't work. I guess so if Michigan State beats Michigan, Penn State beats Ohio State, and Ohio State beats Michigan, then Penn State wins or goes to the Big Ten championship game and likely the playoffs because they have the tiebreaker over Ohio State. Although it'd be the most Penn State thing that they still put Ohio State in the playoffs again. Could you imagine? And they said the same thing, like, oh, that was a non-compete against Michigan. That's what they said last time. If it happened twice, wouldn't their fans be mad? They got to beat him, though. And then Michigan State has to beat Michigan. Because otherwise, you get a 3-way tie. And then who knows what the hell the tiebreaker would be. If Penn State beats Ohio State, and then Ohio State beats Michigan, you could have 3 11-1 teams in the top 10. Hell, they could all 3 be in the top 5 for all we know. And then they would play 4-8 Northwestern, which would really bump their playoff chances up. And that's it. How would they pick the winner? Do they give the bump to the team that ends up playing like a Northwestern? I don't know.
Hopefully somebody pulls away from the pack.
But do you really... Well, the more likely scenario is that Penn State loses to Ohio State. They are at home, though.
No, I tell you, it's not as much of a gimme. It just seems like there's something going on with Ohio State that they're not pulling away from these teams that they should.
And that's where I think, like, if the teams are there and they're all tied, does a tiebreaker really matter if the Big Ten championship game is against some team with a losing record? Because even if it's not Northwestern, Matt, there's still a chance you're playing a team with a losing record in the championship game. Just because of how bad that division is. And the fact that Illinois has to play both Michigan State and Michigan. So
I think as long as your champion has a bigger... As long as your champion has a legitimate record, I don't think it hurts you as much. Because there's some conferences where you're just not going to have... Like, I don't think that the Big Ten's alone that you have one side that you're going to have someone stronger and like the underdog's going to be a weaker opponent.
Well, my scenario is, what if Penn State beats Ohio State on like a block kick like last time or something, or they go to overtime and they barely beat Ohio State, but then Ohio State and Michigan both go down to the wire and do the same thing because of the weird tiebreaker. Penn State plays a losing team in the Big Ten championship. Would they really put them in the playoff? Or would they put Ohio State in or get over them again? Like, that's a real scenario that could happen. Because if you look at the records, like, Penn State would have the worst loss. Penn State needs a 10-win Illinois to be in the Big Ten championship, I would think. If Penn State barely beats Ohio State and Ohio State crushes Michigan or something, I have a feeling that they would put Ohio State in the playoffs. Like, I think the Big Ten would just say, yeah, we don't want Penn State in there. Which, unfair as it is, they would have the worst loss, right? Even though they beat Ohio State at home. I think as a Penn State fan, you really need them to win. Like you're saying, Ohio State hasn't looked good. You need to win convincingly, I think.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're at home. Ohio State gets Michigan at home. So there could be some fluky stuff that happens there. They're more comfortable. There's a real chance that they beat Michigan, and they could beat them pretty bad too. Like, they could be mad from last year, coming in focused and fired up. You don't want that right before the end of the year. Even if, I think right now, the way things are looking in terms of the tiebreaker, it goes by your, like, West Coast opponents or whatever. And it's either Michigan or Penn State would get the nod in a three-way tie, depending on how Northwestern and Illinois end up. Because Michigan has Illinois on the schedule. So if Illinois keeps winning, Michigan would get the nod. If Northwestern or someone keeps winning and Illinois loses a couple, I think Penn State would get the nod. So in either scenario, in this three-way tie that is realistic, now, next week, it might be completely over. If Penn State loses, they would be out of the three-way tie. That's why I wanted to talk about it this week. If the three-way tie happens, right now it's looking like Ohio State won't get the extra game. If they crush Michigan, though, do they still get the playoff nod? Or does the Big Ten just get two teams in? Could you theoretically get two SEC and two Big Ten teams in the playoff and just have a weird four-team Big Ten SEC Invitational? Like, I don't think not Syracuse, but I don't think Clemson has another chance to impress. If they keep turning the ball over and having all these issues on offense, is the playoff committee really going to put them in? I don't think they will. The Pac-12 already they're not going to have an undefeated champion. So the only other conference that can then, other than Clemson's undefeated and TCU's undefeated. I think if they end up undefeated, they're most likely in. If they lose a game, which with Clemson struggles could happen, they could lose to South Carolina for all we know. I don't know who else they play. I think their schedule's pretty easy though. But in that scenario, do you get an SEC Big Ten Invitational? And personally, I think that's bad for the sport. Because it's like, hey, we're going to expand it 12 teams, but we're just giving you a taste of what we really are going to see in a 12-team playoff where we're going to have all these teams in anyway. You know? Because you could have, depending on how Illinois finishes, in an expanded playoff, you could have 4 Big Ten teams in the playoffs this year. Same with the SEC. The SEC would almost likely have 4 or 5 teams in. I don't know how many teams are in the automatic bids, you know? But that's my only concern going forward. How's a team like Pitt or someone, West Virginia, supposed to make that jump when you're front-loading all these double-digit win teams that are going to be in the playoffs? There's no way they leave them out if they keep winning. You're almost cheering for upsets at this point. But that's kind of all I had. What do you have for college?
That's pretty much it. It's just the teams are in this weird shootout scenario that I think if you're looking at auditions for the super conferences, it's the time is now to start putting your best foot forward, because if the SEC and Big Ten are going to continue to be in this arms race, you don't want to be left out. So they better start, if you're going to be one of those winning teams. Like, I'm surprised at how much of a fight Syracuse has put up, and like what they've been able to do, because typically the last couple of years they've struggled, and now it's like they're coming out of nowhere playing well.
And in spite of their coaching, they've made some poor coaching decisions on Saturday, to the point where it's like, do the thing. I would have rather had Syracuse win out and make the playoffs as an undefeated new team. I've been saying that all along. I would rather have, if Michigan's not going to make it from the Big Ten, I'd rather have Penn State make it. Right? Now, I wouldn't really want them to win the national championship if you have all these other new teams in. But realistically, does having Ohio State in again really help Michigan? No. Now, if we both make it, then okay, whatever. As long as we don't like play each other back to back, I think that would be weird. If they set the precedent last year that Georgia and Alabama didn't have to play a rematch, Michigan and Ohio State shouldn't have to play a rematch either. But for all we know, they probably wouldn't even put either of us in. But right now, they have Georgia and Tennessee and Ohio State and Michigan as the top 4. They each have to play each other. The only question will be, will Clemson jump the loser? Maybe, maybe not. Will TCU jump them? They still have TCU behind Alabama. And then after them, then they have the Oregon, Oklahoma State, USC tier. Someone told me Wake Forest would get in over Penn State. There's no way. Wake Forest might have a bunch of like low ranked wins, but they only had a chance for one big win, and it was Clemson, and they failed. Like, that's it. You can have a bunch of wins against top 20 teams that are like 20th, but that doesn't get you in. You had your chance at Clemson. You should have won. I would have loved to see Wake Forest go undefeated and make the playoffs. I think having teams that are like upstart like that would be good. That's why I kind of want the expanded playoff. You'd have Wake Forest would be new from last year or this year. Then you would have Syracuse, like you said, right there. Illinois has a great chance. Even if they would lose the Big Ten championship, they play Michigan. If they win one of those 2 games and win out, they're 11-1 or 11-2. They would make the playoff even if they lost the Big Ten championship game if they beat Michigan, I would think. Now they could also do the opposite, lose to Michigan and then win the Big Ten championship over Ohio State or whoever. That would be funny. I don't think they'd make the playoffs in that scenario. Damn Indiana. How the hell did they lose to Indiana? Plus your boy Brian Kelly right there, Matt. 6-2.
Now he's deciding to play good.
Now they're ready. They play Alabama. They have a bye week, though, so we'll save that one for next week if I remember. But I don't know. I think people should really still be cheering for Kentucky and South Carolina to pull off some upsets. The Big Ten's a different beast. But you can at least get Georgia and Alabama out of there if LSU or someone else knocks them off. That's all I'm saying. But we'll wrap it up and we'll go to the final bell. I don't even know if I'll have much for that. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.